No matter how much Hollywood tries, they will never be able to create a story as scary as the ones that actually take place, which might be why they often look to the real world for inspiration, with "based on true story" being a very popular tagline in trailers for horror films. And trust me, there are a lot of films that claim this, but just how true are they? Here are some of the scariest horror films that are actually based off of true events. And if you enjoy this video, be sure to hit the subscribe button and click the bell to be notified when we upload fresh content. Bit of a warning though before we get started, some of these stories contain some rather graphic content. I'm not going to show you anything, you don't really have to worry about that, but viewer discretion is still advised. Several films, including Psycho, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Silence of the Lambs, were based off of the real-world murders of Ed Gein. In 1954 and 1957, respectively, Gein murdered two women, Mary Hogan and Bernice Worden. Upon entering his home after his arrest, police not only found the mutilated remains of Hogan and Worden, but also several items made from corpses that Gein had pilfered from local cemeteries, such as human skulls that were converted into bowls and a corset made from the skin of a female's torso. Now, the connection to Texas Chainsaw Massacre here is pretty obvious, and Gein was said to have been trying to create a woman suit shortly after his mother's death, specifically targeting women who looked like her in an effort to become her, so there are the parallels with Psycho. As far as Silence of the Lambs goes, that connection probably lies with the fact that Worden's heart was found near Gein's stove, and it was believed that he may have eaten parts of his previous victims, plus the whole woman suit thing. Ed Gein died in 1984 while being held in a mental health facility. He was buried in an unmarked grave in a cemetery in Plainsfield, Wisconsin. It is incredibly terrifying to think that one of the scariest films ever made was based off of real events, and yet here we are. Sometime during the 1940s, the Roman Catholic Church performed a series of exorcisms on a young boy, known only by the name Roland Doe. Doe was supposedly the victim of demonic possession, and underwent several ceremonies that were witnessed by around 50 or so people. While the actual paranormalness of this event is questionable, as the boy could have just been suffering from mental illness or some sort of trauma, the fact that the exorcisms themselves actually took place isn't really debated, as witnesses have spoke about the events as recently as 2013. The supernatural claims, as reported by the attending priest Raymond Bishop, served as the inspiration for the original 1971 novel, The Exorcist, which in turn was adapted into the famous horror film of the same name. And whether you believe in all the supernatural stuff or not, it's still a rather chilling tale. This is a bit of a smaller connection, as Slender Man is largely based off of the creepypasta that itself was based off of a 2009 Photoshop contest. But the upcoming film does seem to take some inspiration from an actual event that occurred. In 2014, two 12-year-old girls, Anissa Weir and Morgan Geyser, lured a classmate into the woods outside their hometown and stabbed her 19 times. When asked why they did this, they said that they were attempting to impress the Slender Man, who I should yet again stress is a fictional character created on the internet. Luckily, the victim wound up surviving this event and was rushed to the hospital, where she was described as being 1 millimeter away from certain death. While we only really have the trailer to go on so far, a lot of the imagery seems to be inspired by this event, at least in some small way. By the way, both girls were eventually found not guilty by reason of mental illness, with one having been sentenced to 25 years in a mental facility and the other currently awaiting sentencing. 2008's The Strangers tells the story of a couple who were stalked, terrorized, and eventually murdered by a group of strangers for seemingly no reason, which, if you are at all familiar with famous crimes, should sound quite familiar. Writer-director Brian Bertino has stated on numerous occasions that the film was heavily inspired by the Manson family and the murders at the home of actress Sharon Tate. In 1969, under the orders of Charles Manson, Tex Watson, Susan Atkins, Linda Kasabian, and Patricia Krenwinkel invaded the home on CeeLo Drive, murdering Tate along with several friends and visitors. None of the victims knew the attackers or really had anything to do with why they were there. The home had previously been occupied by record producer Terry Melcher, with whom Manson had tried to enter into a recording contract, a deal that ultimately fell apart after Melcher snubbed Manson. This is believed to be the reason why that particular home was targeted. Bertino was inspired by the idea of stranger-on-stranger violence after he read the book Helter Skelter, which covered the Manson family murders, which in turn led to him writing The Strangers. While the truthfulness of the paranormal side of this story is up for debate, what isn't in question are the grisly murders that led up to the supposed haunting. In 1974, Ronald DeFeo Jr. shot and killed his father, mother, and 4 siblings at their home in Amityville, New York, many of whom were reportedly asleep in their beds at the time. Now, the story of what actually happened that night has long been shrouded in mystery, with DeFeo giving several different accounts on multiple occasions, so we may never know what truly took place. But what we do know is that the killing supposedly caused the home to be haunted, which in turn inspired the 1977 novel, The Amityville Horror, and the subsequent film adaptations, all of which feature some version of the DeFeo killings. And that's our list. Were there any scary movies that are based off of true events that you can think of that we may have missed? Let us know in the comments down below. Maybe we'll be able to find some new favorite horror films down there. And if you're watching this on Facebook, click the link to be taken to our YouTube channel for more videos like this one. Thanks for watching.